Chicago's Matt Nagy called a really good game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and ultimately it resulted in a win, even with just 20 points. But his offense got completely stymied in the third quarter. Why? I want to walk you through that as quickly as possible, and hopefully you'll learn something about the way offensive and defensive play callers end up dueling throughout an NFL game. So let's start by talking about Tampa Bay's defense, because that's the first thing you need to know. They love to pressure the passer, and I'm not just talking about simple stats like their 17 sacks, making them 4th in the NFL, I'm talking about their defensive structure. One of Tampa Bay's favorite sets to run is a 5-2-4, meaning 5 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and 4 defensive backs. They do this because they love their front 7 and they want to feature it as much as possible, with scary people like Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea, Darius Leonard, and Shaq Barrett making up just the first 4 out of my mouth of a very talented unit. Now, they're not crazy, they don't rush all 5 on every single play, but that's kind of the point. The offense doesn't know where the 4 rushers that more than likely are coming on every play are going to come from, and if they do blitz, that's just as surprising as if they just send the 5 that are on the defensive line. So the whole goal is to confuse the opposing offensive line and overwhelm the quarterback, creating opportunities for sacks and negative plays, which Tampa Bay is really big on. But the aggression you get from a 5 down front does come at a cost. See, if you think about it, those 4 defensive backs have a lot of ground to cover, and that means that smart offensive coordinators like Matt Nagy realize that they can put 2 receivers on one side of the field and force the Buccaneers into a cover 1, cover 3 look and take advantage of advantageous matchups that come from corners like this one right here that have to drop into deep coverage and leave plenty of room underneath for basically free yards. The Bears toyed with this for the entire first half, and if you go back and look at it, it's the Bears that got in their own way of basically running up the score. I know that sounds ridiculous, but if you go look at the 3 drives that failed out of 5 in the first half, all 3 of them failed because of an egregious Bears error. Nick Foles missed Allen Robinson on 3rd and 2, Allen Robinson tipped a ball into a defender's hands, and of course Nick Foles missed Darnell Mooney for a touchdown. So the Bears were eating the Buccaneers' lunch, and while the Buccaneers would make a play occasionally, the Bears would have a better one up their sleeve almost every time. They basically forced the Buccaneers to go back and forth between cover 1 and blitzing to cover 3, trying to play safe where the Bears would throw underneath, and they would just pick up yardage based on whatever Tampa Bay did or didn't do. Seriously, I can't point to a Bears player and say they played amazing here. It was the game plan. They knew what they were doing, Nick Foles' throws were easy, they had the right plan, and they moved the ball against the Buccaneers basically with impunity. It got so bad that the Buccaneers went back to what they had to do against the Saints, and they started switching from cover 1, cover 3 to cover 4, meaning 4 safeties, or actually it's more like 2 safeties and 2 corners all playing really deep, but you get the idea. Trouble is, the Bears were ready for that too, and that's how they got Cordero Patterson open on this 3rd down, how they got Jimmy Graham open for what should have been his first touchdown of the day, and then how they got him open again for his actual first touchdown of the day, all of these coming against a common cover 4. So again, just to reiterate, the Bears could have walked away with as many as 27 points in this first half, but execution kept them down to 14. Still a lead, not great. If you wonder why Matt Nagy is so mad after the game, that's why. But anyways, Matt Nagy ate Todd Bowles' defensive lunch in this first half, and Bowles knew it, so he ripped up his game plan and tried something new. Starting as quickly as his first play in the second half, the Buccaneers trotted out what's called the Mint package, which is a fairly new defensive concept developed by Kirby Smart first at Alabama, now used at Georgia a lot, that basically follows this set of rules. You have 3 down linemen accompanied by a jack linebacker, 2 will linebackers behind him, a star corner, that's the nickel corner, 2 outside corners, and 2 deep safeties. Now this may look like a normal cover 4 defense, but it's not. Not only is that running back side will linebacker almost always in man coverage on the running back instead of dropping into a zone, but the Buccaneers also used man coverage on the outside receiver on the nickel corner's side, meaning that instead of that outside corner dropping back back into the cover 4 zone, it'd be the nickel corner who'd do the drop instead, with the outside staying in man. Now, I haven't watched every snap of the Buccaneers defense, but I did try to skim the 4 games before Thursday night's contest, and I never saw another example of the Buccaneers running this mint package, so there's a chance the Buccaneers may have debuted it here against Chicago. But either way, this package completely flummoxed the Bears' offense, and their first 2-3 plays against it were complete and total failures. On the first play they ran, Foles correctly identified a cover 4 drop and distributed to his running back, because against a normal cover 4 you do want to get the ball to a playmaker underneath to try to attack that soft zone. But remember, this isn't a normal cover 4, it's the mint package, so that linebacker I talked about has Montgomery in man coverage and darts over immediately to go make a quick tackle for almost no gain at all. And then, following a second down that included a holding penalty from Cole Kmet, on 2nd and 20, the Bears tried to do the other thing you'd do against a usual cover 4 and throw to your outside receiver so that he can at least get 6, 7, 8 yards underneath, just like they'd been doing the entire first half. But remember what we said about how they're running mint? That outside corner's in man coverage now, and he swallowed Allen Robinson for a quick 3-yard stop and pushed the Bears to 3rd and 17, which is basically unconvertible, and of course the Bears punted away. So from there, the Bears offensive staff got to work. They had to solve this mint package, and they didn't have a lot of time to do it, a situation that was only exacerbated further when James Daniels left the game with injury and left Alex Bars in against the monstrous Vita Vea, who basically stole an entire series by himself immediately afterwards. But here's where things get interesting, because a defensive coordinator that just basically lost the whole first half can't just trot out one package and consider it a trump card. Eventually the other guy's gonna figure it out. So to start this third series, the Buccaneers trot out a cover 1 defense that looks kinda like mint, but it's not. As you can see, they've traded that second safety for a stand-up linebacker that's sitting on top of Jimmy Graham, kinda making it similar to that 5 down front that they like so much. And, similar to that 5 down front, they actually blitz that stand-up linebacker and leave that jackbacker for mint still in man coverage on Montgomery. And credit to Foles here, he makes a really smooth play, diagnosing that the Buccaneers drop into cover 3 behind that blitzer and seeing that Allen Robinson's not open, immediately switching to Jimmy Graham and getting the ball out before he's pressured to a Graham that's sitting between 2 zones and picks up 8 clean yards. No hesitation, quick execution, yardage. Good stuff. And as wild as that sounds, that one play seemed to push Bowles back on his heels, and he didn't call mint for the rest of the drive. And as you probably know, the Bears basically drove down from the 10-yard line all the way to the opposing 12-yard line before Bobby Massey gave up the edge too quickly against Jason Pierre-Paul and cost the Bears what could have been a touchdown to Cordell Patterson, and that's okay. It happens in football sometimes. But either way, once again, the Bears had faced mostly cover 1 and cover 3 and had driven down the field very cleanly, almost scoring a touchdown. Bowles knew it, Nagy knew it, and as the Bears took the lead on a Cairo Santos field goal, it basically shaped the rest of the game. Tampa Bay got the lead back quickly, and that gave the ball back into the Bears' hands, and honestly, they still hadn't solved mint yet. As they tried a couple of short throws, they got swallowed up by that outside man coverage, and then the offensive line kind of failed for a hot second, and they gave the ball back to Tampa Bay, with a really nice punt from O'Donnell, by the way. But as Chuck Pagano and the Bears defense got Nagy the ball back, the Bears were facing a final drive of the game, and they had to make some plays, knowing exactly what defense was eventually coming, but not quite knowing specifically what plays it was going to show up on. Sure enough, the Buccaneers started that final drive with a 2-safety look, meaning mint was coming eventually. It was just a matter of when. And so they tried to run the ball to keep the Buccaneers honest before throwing one to Jimmy Graham, where you'd hope he'd make a contested catch, but either way, they're still trying to solve this defense, and the Buccaneers defender makes a great play on the ball. But now it's 3rd down and 9. The Bears need a first down to keep their field goal hopes alive. And what defense does the Buccaneers trot out? You better believe it's the mint package. But here the Bears are ready. They know what's coming, and they've figured out how to beat it. Remember how that outside corner's in man, but the inside corner drops to cover 4? What if, Nagy says, we have that outside receiver run a vertical route to clear out the man corner, and then have the inside receiver run an out route to the sidelines that if the Buccaneers throw that unusual look at us again, will take advantage of a ton of open space. That's exactly what the Bears do, and it gets them an immediate, very, very easy third down conversion that they desperately needed. So the Bears anticipate Mint correctly and take advantage of that open space for a huge third down. But to reset on the situation, they're still only at midfield, and they still need to make at least one more play to get within field goal range and try to give their defense another lead. So they try to call a screenplay and potentially anticipate a Tampa Bay blitz, and it doesn't go well. What's new for the Bears? Screenplay doesn't work. But it's here on 2nd and 11 that not only does Foles do the whole rub thing, but he picks up on something you might not have caught. See, Montgomery's being covered by the safety when he's split out, but when he motions back in, that safety kicks back up into a 2-high set. What do the Buccaneers do in 2 high sets? You better believe it's Mint coverage. So who does that mean has Montgomery? Well, if you remember, the Jack linebacker, in this case Jack Barrett, takes the running back in man coverage, and Foles knows this. He sees that signal, he knows the rules of how this setup works, and he immediately calls for that rub call that you've heard all week, because he knows what the defense is going to do, and he knows where to put this ball into space to give his running back a chance to make a play. That's how he figured it out. The Buccaneers hit the Bears with Mint all game long, and here at the end of the game, Foles and Nagy not only predicted it, but solved how they could get advantage out of it, both from that slot position and from the running back versus Jack linebacker spot with this rub call that gets Monty into space and ultimately puts the Bears well within field goal range as Cairo Santos knocks down the leading field goal. And of course, if you're a Bears fan, this game has an even happier ending as the defense holds on to the lead and the Bears walk out of this Thursday night scrap with a very big win, but it all comes back to what Matt Nagy was able to do against a, frankly, better talent-wise Tampa Bay defense with his Bears offense. He consistently attacked the scheme correctly, he solved their big wrinkle at the end, and the Bears offense was able to make enough plays for the Bears to grind out a win despite execution taking points off the board all night long. Considering the scrutiny Nagy's under, I literally couldn't be more excited to see adjustments just like this throughout the course of a big-time football game as the Bears move to 4-1.